Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Chris Haven.
And I'm Alex Walker, and welcome to Empowering Strength and Wellness for FSHD Champions. We wanted to do a second recording to show you actually a live demonstration of some of the things that weren't included in our last presentation.
Thank you.
Before we begin, I just wanted to show you the abstract that we created for this session. So if you wanted to look at the details, they're here. Next, I just want to discuss the disclaimer that any of the presentation materials should only be here for informational purposes and that the content should not be a substitute for medical advice. So as I mentioned, my name is Chris Haven, and I was a fairly normal kid growing up and rode horses, was in 4-H. I did a lot of just normal played basketball, and I really didn't know that I had a problem. I always had a weak core, and I noticed this specifically in basketball when they made you do sit-ups or in PE, and they just were pretty much impossible to do. As time progressed, I went ahead and just kept moving, and I had the opportunity to do the Women's San Francisco Half Marathon in 2013. Again, super slow. I mean, my race training, I felt like I was last in every single practice race I did up until this point. It just was what it was, so I didn't really think anything of it. And then in 2015, I started falling a lot. I fell almost every week, and sometimes on both knees, sometimes on one. I would just randomly trip, and I'd be wondering what came out of nowhere and tripped me. Just did not know what was going on, and it took 2 years to really figure it out. In 2017, I was diagnosed with foot drop. I had no idea what that meant. All I knew is that wearing flip-flops was no longer an option. In 2018, I started wearing an AFO on my right leg as I needed it, especially if I was going out for a long walk or a hike. And then in 2020, I found that I needed one on my left leg. So my left leg just all of a sudden progressed downhill quite rapidly. So in about March of 2020, right when the pandemic was starting, I was having to wear both of my AFOs full time when I left the house and felt like things were again progressively getting worse. In 2023, I started personal training with Alex, and I didn't really know what I didn't know. I didn't know if it was going to be helpful. I just knew that I had reached rock bottom, and I was tired of not getting better and waiting for a treatment. It was, it's been 7 years or so since I'd been diagnosed, and it was just time. I felt like I had to take personal responsibility for myself. I think that's really what it was, is really thinking, what can I do for myself? And so this became something that really I saw rapid results within the first few months, and it really kept me going. It was Alex was very motivational. I myself had a flexible schedule, so that was easy to accommodate meeting up. And then in later this year or around this time, I really noticed a ton of improvements. So after the first 3 months, I actually was able to walk around Green Lake without my ski poles, which I thought was huge because I had to use my walking poles pretty much if I wanted to do any sort of distance walking. And doing that just, it's not a fast walk, but it's, a walk, and I felt balanced, I felt good. 6 months later, I was doing a 35-pound deadlift, and about 9 months into it, I actually started going out. I would forget my braces because I try not to wear them in the house so that I can continue to strengthen my TAs, my tibial anterior muscles, because those are really what's causing my foot drop. So there have been times when I would walk out of the house, go to the grocery store, and if I did that before, I'd be terrified because I would think, oh gosh, where was the first shopping cart so I can grab onto that and not fall? And now I feel comfortable if I do this and not so worried about falling. And then 11 months into it, I had a 55-pound deadlift. And let me tell you, I was starting out with 5 pounds when we started. I mean, I could barely just do even basic leg curls or hamstring curls laying on the ground. So this is all just amazing improvement. And I'm not stopping. I'm just continuing to see where this is going to go. I'm hopeful. So with that, I want to turn it over to Alex.
So functional training is all about using your body to do things that are going to help you with life skills, that are going to translate to life skills or sports if you're, a youth athlete or something like that. And so I got very fascinated with that growing up in sports and things like that. And then I got into competitive weightlifting. Some of the things up here, 2020, I started working with George. I was working with another company and it was during COVID, and Lynn reached out to me and said, hey, my husband has this thing and he just is getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and we just want to slow it down. That was the goal, right, when we first started. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. It's not something I'm familiar with. Did a little bit of research. We did our evaluation, which was the most complicated thing I've ever had to do. And we did it all online, which was like insane. So again, if you guys were at the 360, we learned that most of the atrophy that we see is going to be to one side of the body and then not on the other side of the body. But then the opposite appendage, you're going to see the opposite. The other side is going to be stronger in the back and weaker in the front. And I didn't know that going into it, but I taking notes here. I'm going, okay, so it's all opposite. Sweet. This is going to be really easy to remember. And I was feeling like I was a little bit in over my head, but then as I started working with George and started seeing some of the progress he was making, it was really, really inspiring and something that I became really passionate about. So I ended up starting my own small business in 2022, doing private personal training, virtual training and online coaching. And last year, big year for me, side note, hobbies thing. I competed in the Pacific Northwest Championships for weightlifting and I took 5th place, which was a big deal for me. That's from the American Open. That's 142 kilogram clean jerk I did. That was sweet. We can move on. Goal setting. So actually we're going to talk about goal setting a little bit. So I wanted to put this in here, get into the components of fitness here in a little bit. But the reason why goal setting is important is because if you're seeing this for the first time and you're somebody that does have FSHD or not, all fitness starts with goal setting. And so what I wanted everybody to do, just real quick, you can pull up your phone. If you want to participate, you don't have to. You can just kind of watch real quick. What we're going to do is I want you to make a quick strength goal. Okay. So this is something that for George and I, originally it was, hey, let's not get weaker. And right, we were trying to slow it down. But then we found out pretty quickly, you weren't just not getting weaker, you were getting stronger. You were lifting bands that you weren't able to lift, you were pulling them farther, the range of motion was increasing on exercises. You were having no changes too. Hey, in the shower, I'm feeling like super stable when I'm seated and I don't need back support anymore, things like that. And I'm going, holy cow, we have something here. So the first thing you got to do is have a strength goal, and something that's going to be measurable for you. And that would be this one is going to be a exercise strength goal. Okay, because then what the next thing we're going to do is a functional skills goal. That would be something like walking around without your poles or sitting in the shower without back support. Okay. Number 3 here, we're going to make one specific area you'd like to see strengthened or feel strengthened, somewhere where you just feel weak in general in your body, right? Where would you like to see that strengthened? Okay. And the last thing would be a long-term strength goal. Where would you want to see yourself in a year, like Chris, right? Who's gotten 10 times stronger, and just her deadlift in the last year, which is a big deal because before she would just fall down. So I want to do that real quick. And the reason why, again, that's important is so that this can be relevant to you, because that's why this is going to be important. And if, again, you're somebody who doesn't have FSHD, this is going to be important to you as well, so that you can set your own strength goals. Okay. So let's go ahead and move on.
Hey, so we're back in our Let's Move. We've got 2 exercises. I want to show you a couple progressions depending on your strength, skill, maybe how far on set you are in your FSHD, a couple movements for you. So number 1 is going to be a hinge archetype movement. And the hinge movement is going to primarily work our core, our glutes, and our hamstrings, which we know are super important. So all that is really just bending at the waist, but bending at the waist and bending at the back are 2 different things. So we want to emphasize big hip movement here. Okay, if we've really worked on it, we've talked about neutral bracing, okay, which really means that I'm holding my pelvis in this sort of level position here, as opposed to arching or slouching as I move, okay? So I really want to be thinking and cautious of what my core is doing as I stretch the backs of my legs, push my hips back, and then come up and through. To make it more challenging, I can do it on one leg. Maybe we call this a single-legged balance reach. Okay, you can add weights to that. And then if I need to regress or if I can't stand, we can do this seated. Okay, and then seated position right here with my feet nice and planted in front of me, still aware and conscious of my core, so I'm not overusing my lower back. I'm going to hinge, stretch, try to feel something happening in the backs of the legs, go as far as I can without falling, and then come up and through. And this is something that I use all the time with my clients. All right, so now what I want to show you next is some squatting motions. Okay, squats are for the front of our legs, okay, our thighs primarily, okay, but we're going to get the rest of the legs and again, core involved as well. And super important for standing up, okay, which you need to be able to do. So we like doing a lot of squats, don't we?
Oh, we love squats.
Okay, so we've come a long way with Chris. I wanted to use her as an example on this one because she used to not be so good at it, and now she's really good at it. So we're going to show some of the progressions that we've actually done. When we started off, getting up out of the bench was probably too low. You can see her now. You go and pop up right out of there, can't you? Boom, legs are strong, okay? But before, to regress that, we would have needed to use a little bit more elevation. So grabbing something else in your gym, room, house, whatever you got. A couple phone books. Do people use phone books?
That's
Bam.
much easier.
Okay. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Too bad. We're gonna make it harder. Okay. So that's how we would progress Chris. You know, she would be working on sets of maybe 4 to 6 repetitions, okay, to really develop that strength. And as that became easier, more attainable, we would add weight. Maybe not. We would just go lower. Okay, because we want to see that range of motion primarily. So I take these away, or I take away that. We work our way down and then down, and it's been a year, and Chris is now squatting lower than that. So we've shown the progression, the regression. Let's show a further progression. Let's show them what we were doing the other day. Come on, all the way down. Okay, and she's got great range of motion and good flexibility, which has also been developed because she does yoga. Okay, so her hips move really, really well, but she's able to sit down into the bottom of those hips and press herself back up, which is a really good job. And the same thing, working on sets of probably 4 to 6 reps. If I'm working on strength, I will accumulate no more than maybe 30 reps of something on a given movement before it's time to move on. And that's a day.
All right, thank you.
One more progression for the squat that I wanted to show was the seated version. So we can work on the thighs if we're still not able to quite fully stand up. Okay, so from a seated position, if I'm down here, things that I can work on are literally just straightening and letting the knee bend. Okay, coming from this position right here and then back down. And then sometimes it works to prop the leg up. Okay, so I can turn off the edge of my bench and I can take the bolster and I can put that underneath my leg to give me the angle that I need to be able to go up and down. And if my leg doesn't straighten out all the way, that's okay. I can go as high as I can, hold, squeeze, and develop strength in this kind of isometric position in this hold, and then work my way back down and then up from there. Still, in this case, maybe working on higher range of repetitions, more like 8 to 12 reps.
4 components of fitness. Number 1 would be resistance training. And a lot of people would think that it's going to be cardiovascular or aerobic training. And the reason why it's not that, we'll talk about here in a minute. But that would be number 1. Okay, the most important thing that you guys need to be working on, especially if you have FSHD. If you don't have FSHD and you're working on your fitness, it's still going to be strength training or resistance training first. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Number 2 is aerobic training. Yeah, you still have to do it. Even if you just want to be a big, strong guy like me and do Olympic lifting, I have to do it as well. It's going to help everybody. We'll talk about that, why it's a second. They really go hand in hand. Okay, but I put it second because if you're going to spend your time doing something, you only have 30 minutes. I'd rather have you do strength work than aerobic work. Okay, nutrition and supplementation. We're talking about it a little bit. We'll touch on it. Some of the things that we definitely know, okay, about nutrition. I'm not a diet, so I can give nutritional advice only. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys some of the things that I know about that I can give away. How to figure out how much you need to eat. We'll talk about that. We'll work through that together. Good thing I have my notepad here. And then we're going to talk about accountability and motivation. Okay, and how to stay motivated when it seems like you're up against everything. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. This is something that we've actually started to add weights on. So I don't have a recent video of this, but he's actually putting plates over the PVC pipe and he's pressing those plates back and forth. And what's cool about this is he's getting assistance into a range of motion that he has with, getting exposure to having his arms up and raised, where most of us have a little bit of trouble of if we're having a little bit of that scapular atrophy. And anyway, just a fun example that I wanted to show. There are a million things that you can do with just a stick That's all you really need. We've done how many exercises with that just in the last couple of weeks that I've come up with recently. So we're also creating a big exercise library for these. We've been doing that for the last couple of years. So why is resistance training the most important thing? So evidence exists that quantitative MRI reveals decelerated fatty infiltration in muscles active FSHD patients. That is a lot, but what is the fatty infiltration? So if you miss the 360, we learned that there's a gene in your body that is supposed to be that stop developing in like the third or fourth splitting of the cells of the baby, right? Of the fetus, right? So what's supposed to happen is your body stops producing this gene, which destroys cells, right? But it continues to produce. This is passed on hereditarily, or it could be a genetic mutation, right? And so that's called the DUX4 gene. So right now, what we're testing, actually, and they're doing trials on, are drugs to stop that thing from being produced so that we can stop seeing this fatty tissue replacement. What fatty tissue replacement is when we have muscular cell destruction, right? And it doesn't happen like we would see fatty tissue on regular folks, right? It's going to be in the middle of the muscle body, which causes muscular dysfunction. We found that specifically in the TAs, the tibialis anteriors, that it only takes 5% of that fatty tissue replacement to cause that dysfunction. So it wouldn't take a very long time for it to set in before you started noticing that you were having the symptom, but then at that point, it might also be too late to really make a big change on redeveloping. So the sooner that we can test for this, the better, right? It's kind of the big thing. And the sooner you can find out, the better. But then secondly, as soon as you find out, we need to start developing strength to combat this so that we can slow that down. Because the stronger you are, the more muscle you have, the slower that process takes on. Okay. Secondly, if you're just trying to change your body composition, why resistance training is more important is because it's going to change your metabolism. Okay, if we can add muscle to the body, what that's going to do is going to increase your metabolism. That's your basal metabolic rate. That's the rate at which your body is burning calories when you're not doing anything. When we're just sitting here, we're just burning hot like a stove. That's the reason why I don't do a lot of cardio, because I lift a lot of weights. So I have a high muscle density. So my stove burns very, very hot. So I can eat whatever I want, kind of a thing. Okay, sorry, but I get to. And so likewise, the more we develop that system, the better. Those are our energy systems. Those are the things that give us, energy throughout the day. Secondarily, you're going to get a bigger caloric burn, longer term, right? So our body will recover from a cardio workout pretty quickly, maybe within an hour or two, depending on how intense it is. If it's a longer one, maybe longer. Okay? But for a typical cardio workout, for a resistance training workout, could take up to 3 days to recover from. And that entire time, your body is continuing to use calories to help chip away at those tissues to help recover them. Okay, so that's why it's more important, because it takes longer to recover from. And so even if somebody who's just trying to lose weight, they need to be doing weight training primarily before they do their cardio. Increased muscle mass is directly correlated to higher bone density. Okay, so the more muscle you have on your body, the more dense your bones are. And if you're somebody who has FSHD, that's important because you're at a high risk of falling. Okay, so if you're falling down and you have brittle bones, you'd be more likely to break those bones. And I have a friend here in the crowd who decided he was going to stay in his wheelchair because it was easier than falling down and breaking his legs. Oh man, yeah. And it's unfortunate because if he had had an answer, if the, therapy given to him had been, hey, let's get you as strong as you can to make sure that you're not falling over anymore, he might have not broken his leg twice. Fourthly, sorry, down here. Oh, we talked. This is a little bit of Chris's deadlift progressions. So this one is, oops. Oh, I messed that up. That's supposed to be 11 months typo. Okay. This was actually from the other day. This was from about 5 months ago. This is from about.
Yeah. That's pretty much what I expected.
So we took the shot at it. We had been building up. That is a 15-pound technique training bar with 10-pound disc bumper plate. So she's lifting from a regulated height so that every time we come to do this exercise, she's doing it from the same spot. And the reason why that's good is we're developing that consistency for her. And so we can measure the progress from that height, okay? It's a regulation height that all plates have. So we wanted to see that happen. So then 6 months in, here she goes, same weight. And this actually is the second set, and I'm kind of bummed I didn't get the first set on video because she did like 5 reps. But here we go.
You still?
And that's where her midline kind of gives out on her. And again, unfortunately, I had a video of her. I didn't have a video, but the set before that, she did about 5 reps. So she was tired, her doing that, fatigued. Let's look at the last one. This is from the other day. This is sweet. So pause. This is women's 25 kilogram, or sorry, 15 kilogram barbell with 5 kilogram plates. That's 25 kilograms. It's 55 pounds. So for a gal that came in, that started at 5 pounds with an aluminum, what's called a T-bar. And it's basically a little contraption that you can slip smaller plates on and do different things with. We were using that for deadlifts because I didn't have a tool that was lighter than, 10, 15 pounds for her to work with. So we started with that, would work with 5 to 10 to 15 pounds before we ended up getting that 15-pound bar out and started being able to work with that a little bit more. But here she is with a women's bar.
Arms straight. Good job. Done.
Oh, and that's that. So we're super stoked about the progress that she's making. And I did quite a year. And again, I didn't know that was going to happen, but it's pretty cool that it is. So this is just things that we're kind of capturing as it's happening, and we're not even quite a full year. And that's just one exercise. I have some other videos of her doing a full clean and jerk where she's picking the bar up and then pushing it overhead, a little bit lighter weight than that, not quite 35 pounds. But some big feats, some other things that we've done, some kettlebell swings we'll show here where she's taken that same action of bending at the waist and standing, which is hard enough already if your shin muscles are giving out on you. And she's able to do it repeatedly. She's able to do it with weight and react to the weight, which is super cool. And so we've seen a lot of change in her athleticism, her balance, and her coordination just doing all of these things, right? So let's go ahead and move along there. Aerobic training. Okay, so let's look at those kettlebell swings right now. So this was a big deal. This was more recent, about the last 2 or 3 months, where I was trying to take her, where I categorize movements as level 1, 2, or 3. And the reason why this is a level 2 movement is because there's dynamic movement happening and the weight is changing positions as it goes. That's what categorizes it basically as a level 2 movement. She's in continuous motion as well, right? So we can go ahead and hit that play button and watch this. See the challenge there. So I actually like this video because you can see a little bit more of the progress here. I don't have another video of it, unfortunately, but she's able to now knock out sets of 5 to 10 reps with a bigger range of motion, again, with a lot of power on that, and stabilize that weight, which is huge. Originally, when we first started working on her tibialis, we're trying to get them stronger. It was really just like bodybuilder style. Well, let's just do toe raises and stuff like that. And what you would notice, she would tell me is, I really just feel that in my ankle. And it's just like probably wearing out the tendons in her ankle is what I'm thinking. Like, well, there's muscles there, but that's not really what I want. I wanted to feel like that, belly of that TA really firing, right? And so it wasn't until we started doing deadlifts, and the part of the real reason why we started chasing that deadlift was because that was the thing that got her feeling it the most, which led to the inspiration of wanting to do this type of level 2 movement. And again, getting into cardio training, this is a better exercise selection for her, and we always wanted to use the best use of her time. Okay, I don't need to put her on a treadmill because she can walk wherever she wants. I need to challenge her to do things like this. And then I also need to modify so that she can fall and do things that she needs to be able to do to learn how to do the exercise and learn how to move her body correctly. You still need to do cardiovascular training. Okay, it's not maybe second to resistance training, but we call it strength and conditioning because, again, we want the majority of our energy to go into our strength training because that's where we're going to get the most benefit in the least amount of time. But then we still need to do cardio training, aerobic training, because it's the fastest way to burn the most amount of calories in the shortest amount of time. So if you are somebody who's watching your weight and you ate cake yesterday or this morning. It's an easy way to burn it off really, really quick. The other thing would be increased aerobic conditioning is going to improve obviously your cardiovascular health. You need to have good cardiovascular health, lung health, and heart health so that you can recover from your exercises, sleep better, and have better sleep, so that we can get better recovery from our training, which will increase that muscular hypertrophy. So if we're not doing all of these things, if we're just doing strength work and we were just sitting there doing that, our muscles would then get very, very sedentary, very tired. So staying more active by doing cardio training and just going for a walk is enough, 10 minutes. You're going to be getting that circulation back through and getting a little bit better and sleeping better. Lastly, that is important because having better circulation is going to reduce your swelling. Okay, so if you're already stuck in a chair, can't move your legs very well, those muscles that are getting the fatty tissue replacement are also getting very swollen. Okay, so this is going to help decrease that. Yep. Let's look at nutrition and supplementation.
What would aerobic training look like for someone like George?
So someone like George, that's a great question. Okay, so for George, sorry?
Repeat the question.
So the question was, what would aerobic training look like for somebody like George? Somebody's, who's mostly in a wheelchair. What it would be was just doing a lot of different movements back to back to back without rest. Okay, so he's not going to be running, right? That's not happening. He's not going to on a bike either, right? So traditional things that we would think of, exercise machines aren't going to work for George. But what I can do is I can give him 20 reps of something that he can do very quickly, and then move him to another thing that's a different movement pattern. So for example, we would do an upper body movement, right? Something that would require both arms. We would do a double arm press because he's got a lot of blood pumping to a lot of muscles right there, which is going to get his heart rate up. Okay, higher repetitions for the same reason. So he's huffing and puffing a little bit. And then while his arms are resting, I'm going to give him a leg exercise. And we will go back and forth on just 2 exercises or 3 exercises or so, and keep that intensity high on those 2 things. And that will drive his heart rate up. Does that make sense? Sweet. So we call that
Swimming also.
swimming too. I mean, we just haven't gotten to do that in so long. I almost forgot. So you can swim. Okay. So actually let's back up a little bit. I didn't know about this because when we first started working together, I was a little bit less familiar and just kind of had you working in the chair and trying to come up with exercises that we could do there that were safe and just repeatable. But then one day George mentions, every morning I get up and I do like laps in the pool. And I was like, you what? And yeah. And so, and he's got all these exercises that he's doing in the pool. I'm like, cool, man, let's see it. And I didn't really think it was going to be much, but then I was like, holy cow. So when we talk about the types of things that you can do in the pool, we're taking out kind of the gravity factor. I mean, it's still there, but you're buoyant now. And so George can stand in the pool, he can walk in the pool, he can move his arms further in the pool because they weigh less, right? So we found that he was able to get better muscular recruitment, better activation in those areas. An ideal situation would be a trainer, somebody nearby in a pool, giving him all kinds of different exercises where he's neck deep in water, right? And there were even times when we would do squats. I would have the guy take a breath, go underwater and stand up. And I'm like, this is kind of dangerous, but we're doing it. But I get to call the shots here. And so that was kind of cool. We'll do that. You're probably not going to get that in a physical therapy clinic, but we're going to do that because we were trying to find ways to challenge that and mimic the movement patterns that we want to see done. So that if we could see strength happen in those movement patterns, if he could add load to that, even though he's in the pool and move that weight around, that's still something. Later on, we stopped doing that as often. And so I actually got away from that as much. But yes, swimming in the pool is a great way to do cardio training. That's a good point, George. Any other questions about aerobic training? Let's talk about some stuff really fast. All right, nutrition. In order to build muscle, you need a baseline of protein and calories. Okay, you need to know how much that is, and that's going to be anywhere from. Studies have shown 70% of your body weight, that's a decimal and a percentage, nice job, to 2.2 times your body weight in grams of protein, okay? You get to play with this, okay? So the way that I do nutrition advice and coaching, because I'm not a dietitian, is we do something called flexible eating and we play around with it. So I have a new client who comes into me, they're like, I eat a little bit kind of like a bird. I've never really done this thing before. gosh, that sounds like a lot of calories. I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. Some bodybuilder guy said I was supposed to eat like my body weight in grams of protein. I'm like, no, okay. Studies have shown that people with as little as 70% of their body weight in grams of protein could actually be in an ideal range for them. So it actually depends on your personal genetics, right? And how your body breaks down proteins and specific proteins in particular. Which you can go and you can get blood work done and you can figure out which foods you are sensitive to, resistant to, things like that, or which foods are best for you. And try to base your diet around those things. But basically with protein intake, you're looking at this kind of window. And I think let's just stay with this for today. We could go all the way through carbohydrates and fats and when to have them and all of that. But for now, play with this, okay? You could go up to 2.2. I don't think anybody really needs to do that, okay? But even getting up to that body weight in grams of protein on a daily basis is going to allow your body to have the building blocks to develop new tissue, okay?
Excuse
we
me,
could-
weight in pounds? And
Sorry, grams. Did I say pounds?
No, your body weight in pounds,
Yes,
your body weight in
yeah,
kilos? Or
Yeah, body weight in pounds. Yep, yeah, absolutely. Where are we at here? We want to have a surplus of calories to build new tissue. Okay, so you need to eat more than you think you do. You burn calories just by being alive. Okay, and so then if you're adding exercises and activities, you need to eat and fuel those things, especially again, we're trying to get stronger. Bodybuilders do things where they go through phases of bulks and then cutting. And I'm not a bodybuilder, but they are very, very good at adding tissue very quickly. And the way they do that is by, well, they'll add a little bit of fat while they're at it. So they make sure they're in that excess of calorie intake for a little while, and then they focus on taking it down for a couple of weeks at a time, right? So it just kind of fluctuates and it allows that body that kind of environment to be able to develop that tissue. We look at some cool metrics over here. We had somebody submit this. She started tracking her protein intake and her just how her strength goals or her strength movements correlated with them. And you can see a direct correlation that as she increased her protein intake from about 60 to 80 grams a day, all the way up to about 150 grams a day. Now her squat numbers and her bicep curl numbers just shot through the roof. That's somebody with FSHD. So that's humongous. Okay, so that's just shows right there how important protein plays a role. She was already doing strength training for months, staying at 80, and her numbers were static. But as soon as she bumped her protein intake, it just climbed with it. It's huge. Branched chain amino acids, because I said I would talk about supplements, is probably the most important one. We still have to have the Q&A and reference.
Yeah.
So we've got so before and after results here of, use before and after your workouts to trigger muscle repair. So if you're going to take one thing other than like a protein supplement, I'd say you should be taking a branched chain amino acid. They're the building blocks of protein, basically make it easier for your body to get into that hypertrophy state. It also helps you be a little bit less sore and recover from your training better, which is cool because the better you are going into your training, the more recovered you are, the better your training is that day, the more results you're going to ultimately get. So it allows you to work harder. You could look at some inflammation markers here. This is some iron levels and some other things that when same client started adding amino acids, started leveling out, which is kind of huge, just from adding branched chain. So these are some supplements. The reason why I threw them up here is because they are safe. Okay, I can recommend these. Most gyms in the area around here, they're actually local to Seattle. Recommend DotFit, and the reason why is because they do third-party testing to make sure that they're clean with the National Sanitation Foundation. So they pay to have that done to make sure that all the products are legit. There's nothing bad in there. For athletes, that's important because some supplement companies can produce their things at the same factories as banned substances, and then those athletes can get popped for having banned substances just from having a protein shake that they didn't know was bad. And so we like DotFit for that reason. The other reason is they're one of the only companies that provides the proprietary blends to all of their products. So you know exactly how much of everything is in everything. Nobody else really does that. They're never going to tell you how much leucine is in their branched chain, but these guys are going to tell you all of 9 of their main branched chain amino acids, how much of them exactly is going to be in each serving, which is a big deal. And it's an ideal amount because they've done more studies on different serving sizes for amino acid profiles and things like that, and proprietary blends. That's that. If you're ever wondering, hey, where's a good supplement company? That's one. We can move on. Lastly, accountability and motivation. half of new fitness goers, gym members quit within the first 6 months, okay? So why accountability and motivation is important is that's just an average Joe, okay? Somebody without FSHD. So if you're somebody who has FSHD and you are new to this, and first off, you're just like, what's going on with me? And okay, now we get this diagnosis, you're learning about that disease. And then you have to, oh, wait, somebody said I got to get stronger, and that's a whole new field for you. You're going to need a little bit of help with that, right? Because it's going to get frustrating. You might not see results, and you might not even be motivated to go because it's hard. And that's what having a trainer, having a coach, having a community like this is so important. Annually, a very small amount of health clubs lose less than 30% their members. That's a lot of people coming in and out. So having that extra accountability and motivation, having an appointment to show up to is going to make sure that you're going to do it. I myself have to do it. I have my own coach that I go and see. So how we can keep each other accountable and motivated is by doing that. We have our Facebook groups, right, where we can post about our workouts and our progress through there. And then some of the programs that I offer to help people keep accountable, stay motivated, so that they're not just like, oh yeah, this is a thing that I need to do. You're actually, like Chris, taking action and making a little bit of investment in yourself to improve the quality of your life. We do personal training. You come in and see me one-on-one. We're going to work together. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing everything I can in that hour to be efficient and make sure that we're getting the best out of that hour. And for you, it's not going to be a cookie cutter session. Every hour is going to be a little bit different. And it's going to look different for each person because all of you guys are going to be suffering from different things. I do virtual personal training. That's how I started off with George. I still do personal training online with folks via Zoom, where we put the camera down on the ground and we're getting down and dirty and getting out the exercise mats and doing exercises at home, just on Zoom. It's just like having me right there. I can do it all from literally over the phone. And then online coaching, I use an app called Train Heroic. I have videos that I'll post for you. You would go on, you would see what your warm-up looks like for the day. You would click on the video and you just follow along with the video, doing maybe whatever, warm-ups you have. And then same thing for your exercises that day. There's ways to take notes, to send me videos of your exercises and things like that. And then a chat box so that we can kind of stay connected that way. We also do check-ins every other week on this. So if you're an online client of mine, we'll do a video call, an hour call, check-in about every other week. So a couple of things, places where we got our information right there. If you guys want to take looks at those, there's a lot more science and information on those sites than I just gave you. So thanks again for having me up here.
Yeah.
And if you guys have any questions, there's our contact info.
And
I love how it's formatted.
for those in the room, if you want a snapshot, this is a QR code here for a brief 1-minute survey. And of course, if you want to know more about Alex, you can also scan this QR code to get to Alex's information and contact details.
That is a form for inquiring about online code.
So I appreciate that. And what we're going to do now is take any questions that you have. So if you have any in the room or on chat, and while we're just waiting for that, Primi, if you could put the link from the presentation into the chat so the folks online can get access to that presentation, that'd be great. Yes.
I may have missed when you spoke about oxidative stress. Would you recommend any particular supplements for that?
And let me repeat the question.
So for oxidative stress, supplements for that.
What is oxidative stress?
So tissue, in the course of metabolism, you have free radicals that are very destructive. In different
Any oxidant, any and all antioxidants. But not everyone will like turmeric. But any antioxidants, you want to probably get those through your food, mostly too. So eating, high antioxidant foods, berries, things like that would be really good. I would think. I would always go for the food answer before the supplement answer. Before I'm going to go grab a pill to throw in I'm like, how can I get that through my food? Same thing with the protein. Y'all, you can't just be drinking protein shakes all day. You're not getting 150 grams of protein from the pre-post dot stuff. Get that in.
And I was going to say, actually, I'll add a comment on the nutrition piece because that's something that I've been adding more protein to my diet, as well as I amino acids and creatine both within the last 6 months to, again, try to play with this, see what's going to work and what's going to help. So I
To
think
get the most
I-
out of your training.
yeah, and I think it's definitely proving to work. So that's good. Do you have any
questions?
I had two questions. When you're taking a lot of extra protein, it seems like hydration would be important because
Absolutely.
sometimes your kidneys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to repeat the question is about if you take a lot of extra protein about dehydration and
Drink water. Make sure you're drinking water.
Lots of
Right,
water.
and don't just drink water when you're so thirsty. Just drink. Make sure you're drinking water throughout the day. You don't need to drink a gallon of water, right? Necessarily, it's not, again, bodybuilder or somebody getting ready for some type of sporting event or anything like that. Several glasses of water throughout the day would be good. There are more specific formulas if you wanted to check. I actually don't have one off the top of my head that I use in particular. Just make sure my athletes are drinking water. And if you're notably not drinking water, that's another thing. And then more specifically, I'll track water with folks that I feel like are really needing that, right? So we'll give more specific water.
your second
Second question, could you do that calculation like for 100-pound person? Because I'm
This
not
one?
sure I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it would depend. So we would want to start off, let's say it was you, right? With just like 7, right? 0.7 times your body weight in protein. You just moved the decimal 2 times. Boom. Guys, you need 70 grams of protein a day.
And
At the
then
minimum.
Minus 2.2 is.
It's the range. That's the range.
That would be the range. So this is a range. So this is
The
their
minimum.
minimum.
Yeah.
This is your minimum. This is gonna be 70 grams a day.
But it's not minus 2.2 grams.
No, sorry, this is our range. This is just a
No.
range of, we're gonna go from about 70% of our body weight up to 2.2 times our body weight.
So
220.
the body weight isn't pounds, the amount of protein
Right.
is in grams.
So
Right,
you could go up to 144 or whatever.
sure.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, as long as the body's digesting it. So that would be another time when you could go actually get your blood done and see if there's protein on your urine. Your body's probably not able to break down all of that protein that you're taking in. That happened to me when I was younger because I was trying to bulk up when I was a young kid and we did my physicals. And I think, the protein on your urine. Maybe eat something else. Yeah. So. Anyway. So yeah, so we can't just be, blasting our kidneys with protein and creatine on all of these things without the additional water intake. Yeah. How much would just be depending on how much you feel comfortable drinking, and you don't want to flush your system out. Again, like no more than like a gallon of water. I would say for anybody, unless if you were someone who's heavily sweating, running a lot, and something like that. That's a ton of water. I don't mean. I believe that. I know I probably should. You guys are on your judging me, but it's fine.
For us. And then also, if you need to contact Alex or would like to do that, obviously would like you to do that on your own. And then we're going to have the science meeting starting at 1:30. So we'll have a brief break. And for those of you that are online, there is going to be a different Zoom conference that you'll want to join. This is recorded for this specific hour. And so we'll go ahead and drop off in a few minutes after everyone's had a chance to get this information. So thank you all again for coming. Thank you, Alex, for joining us today. I appreciate it.
I want to do a little bit of a let's move. So you guys at home, if you want to participate, we're going to do a little bit of an exercising. Okay. I don't want to show you. Can we see the crowd here?
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay. And if you don't want to participate, you absolutely don't have to, but we're just going to move around a little bit because it's an hour and that's a long time to just sit in one spot. So show you guys also some of the modifications that we can do for some leg exercises. So I've got some able-bodied and some able-bodied and some less able-bodied folks in the crowd. So I want you guys to take reference to how I move them and how I'm going to move. We're going to do 2 exercises really quick for our legs. What we're going to do is we're going to do a hinged deadlift motion. Okay. So we're going to do we'll see George, he's going to be folding in his chair forward and backwards. Okay, he's not allowed to use his hands on that. That's using his core, his glutes, his posterior chain to help him pull himself back up. That's going to be mimicking the strength that he needs to stand up when he's doing that. Okay, so that was something that we've been working on long-term and seeing progress with. So we'll see how George gets that done. Chris is going to stand up. And Chris is going to do just a bodyweight good morning. So you come up and stand up here with me. And you can go hands on the back of the head. And this is a balance thing for her, okay? And it's a little bit tougher when your shin muscles are a little bit weak, as we know if we have foot drop. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna slide our hips back, big stretch in the back of your legs. And then you're going to squeeze your glutes, squeeze your core, stand back up. And if you do 10 of those, I bet you'll get tired and you're gonna feel it in your shins and your core and your glutes. And if you're sitting in your chair, you're doing the same thing. You're sitting forward and you're coming back up. And we're just like that. And now if you're a little bit more able-bodied and you're like me, you gotta do it with one leg. Okay, so we're doing it just like this.
Come on, you guys. Come
Yep, everybody get up.
on now. Gee, willikers.
Let's go.
Trying to get our audience.
And I'm gonna
to
move around,
engage.
work with you guys a little bit. Again, all right.
I don't think I'm in that
You guys, don't, one hand. You can modify that by touching the chair. You can totally touch the chair. So if you're thinking about, hey, how am I ever gonna do this on one leg? There you go. There we go. Okay. We can also grab the chair for a little spotter. George working his butt up right here, literally. Buddy, how you doing? Yeah, that's really a great modification I did on YouTube. And this is something that we'll add weights to. There's my gal doing with the one leg. How you doing? Can you touch what?
Well, she's got my heels on though. I don't think that counts.
You're on heels too.
I know, that's extra tricky.
You're on one tippy toe. Essentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hit the floor. Yeah, go Amanda, go.
Okay, so I don't throw my back out.
Hi there. Come on.
Welcome. Hey, we're exercising. We did this time. Awesome. You guys at home, I hope you guys are figuring some of this stuff out. If you're getting bored, I'm sorry. So we're looking for, if you're a one-legger, that's 10 on each. If you're a two-legger, it's 10 or 20 if you're in the chair. Okay. And then our next movement. You're not done.
Oh.
We got 2 exercises.
Oh, I thought that was.
Yeah, that was thing one. We're just gonna do each one twice and then we're gonna move on, okay? So I want to take everybody's time and I don't need to make you sweat. Next one is a squat, okay? You've gotten really good at these, okay? But if you need to, we're gonna use a chair. So this is how I would treat Chris if we were in class. First thing I would have her do is actually just take a seat, Chris. Go ahead. Like,
This is my favorite part.
yep. And this is usually, it's like princess service. I just bring everything around. Right, there you go. Okay, now hands are free though, and she's gonna stand on up. Go ahead. That used to be really hard. Okay, and she's gonna come down and sit and stand. That would be one modification. If she needs to use her hands to do that, she can. Another thing we'll do, I have a gal at home that I work with online. We need to put blocks. So we take yoga blocks or we could take pillows to put her at a height that she can do without using her hands. Okay, so that would be our goal for developing leg strength and just being able to stand. If you're somebody who's already lost that, you're my man George over here in the chair. George, what do we do? Knees.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna go kickouts right here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's show.
I didn't bring anything.
We don't need one. We go without. So we're gonna go without, and you're just gonna do your best kick, and it doesn't have to go high. What we need to develop new muscle. A lot of times people think, well, I need big range of motion, or I need a lot of weight to move. Really, what I need is a good muscular contraction, or the best that I can get. Okay, so even without a lot of range of motion, if I'm squeezing really hard, we know this about isometric exercises. Excuse me. That we can develop a lot of new muscle tissue, or at least start, okay? So in your chair, if you're doing that, you're kicking your legs out, you're squeezing as hard as you can. You got a 3-second squeeze, and then you can bring that leg down, switch leg. If you're a little bit more able-bodied, you're up and down doing a sit to stand, or let's level up, you ready? You're gonna do a touch, just a touch. I know she did so many, but just a touch, and then up. Okay, did not have that before for sure. She actually does this with weight now, which is actually really exciting. She does it with barbell on her back.
Wow.
So that would be you guys, and the chair is there to help you. Okay, if you're me, you get to squat. Even if your knee hurts. Okay? We're doing 10, and then we're gonna do back to our first exercise one more time. Wait, what are you doing?
I can't squat.
Oh, your hip. You get to do what George is doing. If you're Lynn, you need to go get hip surgery. You gotta stay in your chair and watch. Okay.
All right, then the first one back to.
Back to our deadlift thingy. Okay, and so we're going to our one-leggers. If you're a one-legger. Okay, if you're not a one-legger, you can go here. We're looking for a big stretch on the back of the leg and a stand. And again, for you guys thinking about trying the one leg, you can touch to a chair and use that for balance. George, getting it, my man. 4th workout of the week.
Nice.
Boy, what are you doing?
Oh.
I'm playing.
I'm waiting.
Oh, get out here.
Everybody's doing it. Okay, so I hope somebody, and you guys in the back, I hope you learned a little bit about that, but anybody can do exercise. I had a gal the other day that I was on the phone with, and she's like, I don't know how we would do this online. Linda, I don't know if you're watching, hi. But you sure can. And it helps to have a little bit of help around, but if you don't, we can still figure it out. Okay, we'll find something for everybody. Thank you guys for doing that. That was fun. Yay.
One more.
I hope you guys also felt like, whoa, hey, there's a little bit of something there that I can definitely benefit from if I continue to work on that. And like Chris, just bending over at the waist and standing up was very difficult when she first started. You can see how easily she's doing it now. And now she can do it with weight. And I want to look at some of that stuff. So let's keep going.